A healthy forest is what CFA, Catskill Forest Association, is all about. If you keep taking the very best and the very fastest growing and the fastest growing species out and the ones that bring you the most money, then what's going to be left? Garbage, right? We have a forest right now in the Catskills that's got a lot of garbage. It may look young to a lot of people. It's green, small trees, but they're old and they're not very good quality. What we need to do is start this forest over again. What we're trying to do is develop a market for those low-quality trees that you can sell, which will absolutely benefit the forest. We can do that by using biomass in order to heat our homes. Community heating makes all the sense in the world. You're using woody biomass, which we've got lots of right here. You're hiring a lot of people. You're providing your own heat, your own energy. You're not losing control, you're actually gaining control. I see some dead trees that were killed here when the forest tent caterpillar came through, and we can't take them for saw logs.
Yeah, they're stained, they're no good for logs, right. But there's a lot of that could be harvested for...
They'd burn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For biomass material.
Yeah. Replace some of that fuel oil everybody's using now.
Yep.
Right now we have a high-grade market. We don't have much diversity in the forest industry. You can find a person to come over to your property tomorrow or today to cut your largest, best quality black cherry tree or red oak tree or any other tree that's large and worth some money. To cut the smaller trees or the trees that are of poorer quality would cost money. And in many cases, you want to cut some of these poorer quality trees because they're competing with some good quality trees. Woody biomass would provide a market where someone might come and harvest those poor quality trees.
So when you cut down a tree and the tree might have a saw log or maybe two if you're lucky, and then the rest of the tree, you leave it in the woods or?
Leave it in the woods or firewood.
Here's a good example here of a tree that was cut down, a large stump. It's an ash tree. Look at the top there. There's probably half a cord of firewood there. You put about 10 of those onto a truck, you take it to the biomass plant, and there's a day's worth of burning. We're driving by these things. It's lost opportunity.
Thank you very much for coming out here this morning to join us for this tour. If you're on this bus, you must be as crazy as us, or very, very interested in what's going on.
My name is Jim Waters with the Catskill Forest Association, and to give you a little bit of history about how this whole thing transpired, the College of Environmental Science and Forestry in Syracuse received a grant from the New York Department of Energy and the Department of Environmental Protection. They put together this money to do a feasibility study, and originally it was going to be for SUNY Delhi. And I was in a meeting there for a different purpose and talking to the president, and she said she really didn't want to take this project on that year. She was relatively new, and I asked her, well, can I have it then? And she said yes. And then I talked to several people trying to decide where we're going to do such a project, what community it would work best in. And I talked to Peg Ellsworth and a number of people, and we all agreed that Fleischmanns was probably the place that could best benefit from a project like this. And the feasibility study is done. Adam Sherman here is with Burr Energy, who did the study, and we're going to go visit one today.
Burr conducted this feasibility study. It was conducted over about a year time, and we came in and we worked with the village and gathered load information about the square footage of all the various homes and buildings and businesses in the village. And so we delineated an area, gathered all the data, looked at where a district heating plant could be placed. It's at the municipal wastewater treatment facility. Adjacent to that, there's a parcel where we identified that would be the most suitable location. So there's three major components to a district heating system. There's the central heating plant itself, where the boilers are housed and where that heat is being produced. You have the network of supply and return pipes throughout the community. And then in each building, whether it be a large facility, a business, the library, or in a single home, there's what's called a heat transfer station. And the heat transfer station is where the heat is transferred from the hot water supply of the pipe network going throughout the town to the internal building hot water hydronic system, where you're distributing heat throughout the various rooms of your home or building. There's also a meter there that's built into that, so you can calculate BTUs so that each and every building is being billed monthly or quarterly for the amount of thermal energy that they use.
That water is not going to go through your pipes through your house to heat it, okay? The box on the wall is going to take the heat out of that water and put it into whatever system you have. It could be hot air, it could be hot water. You can use it in many different ways.
In Fleischmanns, we burn about the equivalent of 250,000 gallons of oil every year for heating. And that's a startling number when you think of really the small number of people that live here year-round. It's 350, essentially, full-time people. There's got to be an initial investment to construct the plant, the infrastructure, the piping, and the actual heat transfer modules that are going to be installed in the individual homes. We're really pioneers in what we're attempting to do here. Not having to buy 250,000 gallons of oil a year frees up an awful lot of money that could be spent in a much better way. And through the right financing mechanism, the capital costs of the project can be taken care of and financed over a long period of time with the money we would normally be putting up our chimneys burning oil and gas.
The reasons why communities pursue a district heating system, there's combined efficiencies rather than everyone fending for themselves. Tying in one large central plant that can have one stack and one point of emissions, you have a more efficient system that will ultimately allow you to buy larger volumes of fuel. But with this plant, you're also using, wood as a fuel, and wood as a fuel compared to heating oil is roughly 25% of the cost of heating oil on a delivered energy basis.
What we're looking at potentially with this system, even in the first few years when the cost of the entire installation has to be capitalized, is at least 15 to 20% savings over what people are having to spend now to heat their homes. And once the initial capital costs are paid off, the cost of heating is going to continually go down over time, because it'll essentially just be the cost of maintenance and fuel.
So we have 4 bays. Each bay has its dedicated garage door and a set of swing doors. The tractor trailer takes about 10 to 15 minutes to offload. The actual ash that we physically take out of the boiler, that's very, very minute. We haven't even gotten rid of it yet this year, and we've been burning since October.
26 tons more or less. You get about a 20-gallon pail full of ash. In general, in smaller quantities, this can be top-dressed on golf courses, athletic fields, farm fields, potash potential and micronutrient value, and pH control.
A lot of people think, well, you burn all this wood, you must have tons of ash, but really there's very little ash for the amount of wood we burn. The chips from here are taken out of this bay and put onto a conveyor belt on the other side of this blue wall. So we have our 2 screw augers. Essentially, they travel left to right on this chain. There's a small motor here that's driven for the chain only. This will travel it left to right. The auger comes off the bottom and it extends all the way to the other side of the chip bin. All the chips ride the conveyor up to a metering bin.
So there's only that one conveyor belt, and then in the metering bin, the fuel supply is being split. The chips are piling onto that bed, and as it burns, the ash kind of rolls down a series of grates. As it comes down, those gases are brought back through here, and then up and out the stack.
The wood's coming in the back of the boiler. Inside the boiler, the grates are on a slope. So the chips come in up high, and because they're constantly being fed in, the chips just keep pushing themselves. And by the time they push themselves about a third of the way down the grates, they're ash. That essentially is about 2,000 to 2,500 degrees. One of our biggest goals is to be carbon neutral by the year 2020, and by building this facility, we've dropped our carbon footprint by about 45%. So that alone is huge.
It's really fascinating to be at this plant. You know, we've looked at this stuff online, we've heard all the numbers, but to actually be standing and walking around all this equipment and seeing how powerful and clean and high-tech and amazing everything is quite impressive. To think that something like this could soon be happening in the Village of Fleischmanns is incredibly exciting.
I am blown away by the fact that something that's this size uses, or I should say emits, the equivalent of just a few small home wood stoves.
I'm very encouraged by the fact that it looks so doable. And our scale would be smaller than this, which would be nice. But I think it's good.
I'm really hopeful to make it happen. I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways, and we have to find some way to make it feasible for the homeowners and the business owners in town.
It's been a great experience. I think it's certainly a doable idea, very good conception. Only concern is, can we afford it? Where can we get the money from?
The ownership, they assumed, would be public in the beginning. And the reason that is because the public has better access to grant money than private industry. And also longer term, lower interest loans. They're figuring 50% on grants, okay, which is not outlandish. I think we can do that. Capital costs covered by borrowing, 50%. Okay, so you're borrowing $6 million over 20 years at 3% or 4% or something like that. This project could cost upwards of $10 million in the front. It does sound like a big number, but there is a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of federal programs and things like that. The mayor of Fleischmanns and I and the Mark Project, Peg Ellsworth, we're all looking into these things. And I think we could probably get up to 40 or 50% of this paid for.
We have to deal with certain economic realities, and one of them is that most folks here don't have a lot of capital sitting around that they don't know what to do with. So we pretty much ruled out that it would cost the residents and the business owners money out of pocket in order to get hooked up to this type of system. So what we're really trying to do is set up a financing mechanism such that all the upfront costs are covered, and then over the life of the plant, those costs are recouped as part of the expense of providing heat to customers.
Why Fleischmanns? Because they're forward-thinking, they're poised and ready, and it is a place that could use a shot in the arm economically. And the 20 and 30-somethings may look at this as a model for what they're looking to for sustainability. Again, I can't say strongly enough that I think the 50% debt service is a way modest thing. I don't think it will be that.
$1.2 million goes out of here for fuel oil each year. And what you're basically doing to pay back the $6 million loan is leveraging that money. That money then stays in the community, it pays for the infrastructure you built, and it does it over a 20-year time period. And at the end of that 20 years, that money still keeps coming in. This becomes a net money generator for the community. It's actually going to add value to the community.
This ties into some other things that I'm interested in for the town around sustainability, using the assets we have here, like our wood forests, to really bring out some economic benefit.
It's forward-thinking, it's community-based. Every component of this project can meld together into exactly what we should be doing as citizens.
I'm hoping that Fleischmanns does take charge and do this thing, and I think other people will follow suit afterwards.